Hello, welcome back to the channel. I have a fun video for you today. We're doing something reasonably different. I first wanted to apologize. We've been around for a while. A lot of hecticness going on all three of our parts, honestly, but there is more content coming down the pipe, so fret not. A bunch of stuff going on. Just too much stuff for us to have a ton of time to play, but a couple of really exciting sets have dropped, and we're excited to jam with new cards. And we wanted to do something kind of different for our Secrets of Strixhaven spoiler video this time. So rather than waiting until the whole set is spoiled and doing the kind of classic, like I wake up at 6 a.m. Saturday morning, the day after the set is spoiled, and go through like half the set, we're each going to talk about a couple of the most premium cards that have been spoiled so far. I'm going to cut them together, so you're going to get perspectives from myself, Jer, and Trent. Normally, you don't get that, so we're hoping that you'll enjoy that new take on the set review from us. Um, and let us know if there are cards that we miss in this process that have been spoiled. Obviously, there are going to be things that get spoiled between now when we post this video and when the full spoiler goes live. So we are going to do a follow-up kind of like part 2 video that will probably just be one person cleaning up the rest of the cards that we missed. In this set review, we're going to try and only talk about the cards that we think are kind of like maybe like B and above, if you wanted to put them on a grading scale. Like, these are cards that we feel pretty confident are going to appear in some deck. And then we'll probably do a follow-up video where we talk about the cards that are more fringe or really specific to particular archetypes rather than being locked into just being powerful cards generically. Okay, so my first card is Emeritus of Conflict. This is a sick one. I think that this one looks poised to be quite powerful in mono red. So Emeritus of Conflict is a 2 mana, 1 and a red. Um, sorry, is a 1 and a red 2/2 with first strike, and it says whenever you cast your third spell each turn, this creature becomes prepared. Prepared is the set mechanic of Secrets of Strixhaven. Essentially, creatures can have some kind of condition that makes them prepared. Many of them just enter prepared even. And then they have a spell as a second half of their card that is only playable once the creature is prepared. And in the case of Emeritus of Conflict, the spell is Lightning Bolt. Very obvious. We all know this one, 3 damage to any target for 1 red. This card to me seems like a pretty reasonable one in the mono red shells. It's going to be challenging, I think, to get to the third spell the first time. You're likely going to need some kind of 0 mana spell or like a bauble of some sort. But once you get to the third spell, if this gets to stay in play, the lightning bolt from this card gets to be the first spell in that chain of trying to get to 3 spells to prepare it again, which seems pretty powerful. The 2/2 first strike stat line is already at a base rate relatively reasonable, and I think mono red is interested enough in finding more ways to just deal direct damage to their opponent that this card is likely to make it into those kinds of shells. Outside of that, maybe you might see this in like some kind of prowess shell, potentially. Again, getting to the third spell is definitely going to be the hard part the first time, but once you do it, I think this card seems like it's going to be quite reasonable. I don't think that this is going to appear in a ton of decks. Like, I'm not envisioning this being a new format staple by any means, but I do think that it definitely gets to the bar of being good enough to be played in some mono red shells and maybe some like blue red prowessy shells as well. I could see being interested in this card for similar reasons.
The Dawning Archaic is a 10 mana legendary creature avatar, 7/7. It costs 1 less to cast for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. Has reach and has an attack triggered ability. Whenever you attack, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost if that spell would be put into your graveyard exiled instead. Notably, these cards typically have a mana restriction or some sort of restriction, like maybe only sorceries, only instants, or as I said before, a mana restriction. This casts anything, so if you are able to play like, I don't know, time warp, all the time warps, get them into your graveyard. Obviously, pretty good. Uh, it's able to get cost reduced pretty significantly. May face some trouble in the face of graveyard hate, but you know, greatness at any cost. Um, I actually could see this in a lot of decks, uh, and it does fight with some of the delve spells, which can be a little awkward. But I also think we're close to a sort of critical mass of Tolarian Terror esque effects, where like you could sort of eschew the delve threats for these types of threats, and it could be good. So yeah, I'm excited to try this deck in control decks, maybe some tempo decks, and yeah, I'm excited to see what it can do.
I'm outside. Emeritus of Ideation is a 5 mana 5/5 flyer. It has Ward 2, and it says when this creature enters, it enters prepared. Uh, if it would attack, and you can exile 8 cards from your graveyard, you can prepare it again. And its prepared spell is Ancestral Recall. I think this card's going to be pretty good, but it's a 5-drop, so you'll have to be careful where you want to play it. Ward 2 is a really big deal. Ward 2 is a lot of extra mana for someone to pay to target it without their spell being countered. And the condition of attacking with 8 cards is actually pretty reasonable in a lot of these decks, especially at that stage of the game. If you play your 5 mana 5/5 flyer and they don't kill it, you get to recall, draw a bunch of fuel that can then go into your graveyard to potentially fuel it again. And 5/5 flyer is a really good stat line too. Ends the game very quickly, really good blocker. Again, Ward 2, really, really big deal. The thing about this card though is it is a 5-drop. 5 mana is a lot in this format, and it's competing with every other 5-drop in the format. Things like, say you're playing this in a control deck, it's competing with the 5 mana Teferi, for example. So I think this card's still going to be pretty good. I really like finishers that have a little bit of other value. We've seen things like that in the last year. Quantum Riddler, Wan Shi Tong, etc. Those cards are obviously better than this because they have the buyout clauses of their 2 mana options. So I'm curious to see where Emeritus of Ideation lands. I mean, you can also for 6 mana just cast it and draw 3 if you have 3 blue. So you could pay 5 mana and then cast Ancestral Recall right away. So it's like its fail case isn't actually that bad, but it is a 5-drop, so you'll have to consider that when you're playing it. I think this is going to end up probably in mostly control decks. Maybe Jeskai. I don't know if it'll end up in Jeskai. I don't know if Jeskai necessarily needs another big finisher, although I'm probably going to be trying it out. And I could see big mana decks also playing this, especially since a lot of the big mana decks don't necessarily play the same graveyard cards that something like Jeskai or Esper Control do. Oftentimes, big mana decks can have like a little bit of extra clutter lying around in the graveyard, so I could totally see a big mana deck wanting to play this as like a sort of middle of the curve, creature that is like a little bit harder to remove for the opponent, gives you some extra cards, and then maybe gets you like another 3 cards later on.
Okay, my next card is Maelstrom Artisan, another mono red card. This one is 1 red for a 3/2 Minotaur Sorcerer, not wizard, relevant as it turns out, with haste. This creature enters prepared, and its spell is Rocket Volley, which is 1 in a red, and it destroys a non-basic land. So on base rate, 3 power hasted creature in a bunch of shells is just already going to feel fine. That is along the right rate where it's getting in damage at a fast enough speed that you're going to feel pretty good about it. And then the big thing here is that 2 mana destroy a non-basic land is very powerful. That is an effect that a lot of decks want access to. Mono red in particularly can leverage that pretty effectively to knock players off base. One other thing that I think is kind of intriguing about this card is that it flickers very well. I don't know that red is the shell that we're going to see flicker decks leading towards, but something like a Jeskai Blink deck is something that I can envision potentially being pretty powerful. And this is a card where if you can like ephemerate it, blow up their land again, right? Like that's a pretty potent effect to get multiple accesses to. So it seems pretty good to me. I think that primarily this is a mono red card, but that you might see it seeing play in a couple of other aggressive shells. It also might end up being like card number 60 in a bunch of decks. Like I think that's pretty reasonable as well, where it's like on the outside looking in, but like just barely. But it is overall, I think, a really interesting rate, and the effect of destroy target non-basic land is powerful enough that I think you're going to find reasons to put this card in your deck. Basically, I think that there's going to be enough good stuff going on with it that you're gonna convince yourself that it's worth playing.
Up next, we have Quandrix the Proof, 4 green blue, legendary creature Elder Dragon, 6/6 with flying and trample, Cascade. So you get that nice Cascade trigger. Something you want from your expensive spells is an ETB, and this is even better than an ETB because it's even good into counter spells. And it has a really, really powerful line of text that says instant and sorcery spells you cast from your hand have Cascade. This is especially powerful because it enables you to put 0 cost cards into your deck. And if you cast 1 cost spells, you're guaranteed to cascade into the 0 cost spells. So it can enable you to put Ancestral Vision, Inevitable Betrayal, Crashing Footfalls into your green-blue deck, and with the potential of getting them for free with Quandrix, which is pretty nice. I think you can play this in like a Simic Slaw style deck, maybe even like a Scapeshift style deck, although Scapeshift wants to play a lot of counter spells, but Slaw typically doesn't play too many counter spells, a bit more proactive, so could be pretty reasonable there. I also think if the meta gets a little less combo-y, a ramp deck could be good. I'm calling it now.
For Emeritus of Truce, it's a 3 mana 3/3. It's 1 white. When it enters, you give a player, any player, target player, a 1/1 white and black flying spirit creature token. And then if your opponent controls more creatures than you after that trigger resolves, you prepare Emeritus of Truce, and the prepared spell is Swords to Plowshares. Emeritus of Truce is pretty interesting. I think 3 mana. Well, so let's start from the beginning. 3 mana 3/3 is super below rate. The 1/1 definitely helps. Like 3 mana for a 3/3 and a 1/1 isn't the worst rate ever, but it's definitely a little underwhelming in today's format. Like creatures are just a lot better than that these days, but it isn't anything to scoff at. Like especially since 1/1 flyer is a really relevant stat line. But giving your opponent a 1/1 flyer, let's say if you feel like you have to gain access to that Swords to Plowshares, is going to be pretty relevant. 1/1 flyers are really good. I'd say they're probably about equivalent to 2/2s on the ground. Like they sometimes they do quite a lot more. The payoff is pretty good. Swords to Plowshares is quite excellent in this format. Although I think part of the reason Swords is so good, I mean, I don't need to talk too long about how Swords is really good, but the difference between 1 mana and say like 4 mana over like the same turn or 2 turns with Emeritus of Truce is a pretty big deal. It also being contingent on the creature being alive matters too. Like, let's say your opponent is making a Merit Lodge, for example, they can kill the Emeritus of Truce before they activate their Thespian stage to get their Merit Lodge, and then you aren't able to, stop them from hitting you for 20. So I think the best case on this card is pretty great. Like, you play an Emeritus of Truce, 3 mana 3/3, you get your 1/1, and they still have like 3 creatures in play. Well, then you're up a Swords to Plowshares. Like, I could totally see this card swinging games where you're behind. And then when you're ahead, if they have creatures in play, then you can maybe get access to a Swords that kills a key Barrogoyf, or you can just give yourself a 1/1 flyer. But I don't really know how to evaluate this card or where I think it's going to end up. I think you should probably be trying it in Boros and White Weenie. I don't think you would play something like this in Jeskai or Esper Midrange or any sort of control deck. It might be good in Blink decks. I could totally see that being the case as well. Just continually blinking the creature to get a Swords to Plowshares, turns all of your blink spells into swords, depending on the board state for your opponent, etc. So yeah, I think this is definitely worth trying. But I'm a little suspicious at the beginning.
Okay, so my next card is Traumatic Critique. This is a X blue red instant that says Traumatic Critique deals X damage to any target, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. So at base rate, this card is an instant speed, draw 2, discard 1, which is already uh pretty reasonable. It's not like going to blow the doors off of anything. You're not immediately discovering that new archetypes are unlocked by this card's existence, but that's a pretty reasonable rate. Seeing two new cards, getting something into the bin is increasingly a valuable thing to have happen in a game where we have more and more graveyard synergies, delve spells, things that care about having cards in the graveyard. So actually looting a card away in the process of this is not even always necessarily a downside. And it has the upside of scaling really well as you get into the late game, particularly because this can target players. I think it's quite nice that this is something that exists in like your Jeskai deck or your blue-red control deck like Blue Moon, as a way that in the early game you just fire it off on end step as a little card advantage spell, but towards the end of the game maybe you cast it for like 5 and you just get to dome your opponent out for 5 to close the game out. And I think that that kind of duality of the card is going to make it pretty attractive. It's never really dead. Draw 2, discard 1 is like a very, very reasonable card to be playing in these kind of blue-red tempo-y decks, or sorry, in these blue-red controlling strategies like Jeskai, like Blue Moon, things like that. And so as a result, I think this is a card that you're going to see pop up a decent amount, where it's just like fills a nice spot on the curve. At 4 mana, maybe you get to kill something and advance your hand. I just think that like a lot of the effects of this card are pretty attractive, and as a result, you're going to see people reaching for it.
All right. Up next, we have Emeritus of Abundance. I was just mentioning Scape Shift. This is very much a Scape Shift card. It's 2 and a green for an Elf Druid, 3/4 with Vigilance. This creature enters prepared. And whenever this creature attacks, if you control 8 or more lands, it becomes prepared. And the preparation leads to Regrowth, a card we know and love. 1 and a green sorcery, return any target card from your graveyard to your hand. The fact that it enters prepared is pretty crucial, I think. If it didn't, I'm not sure it would be good enough. But Scape Shift is the obvious home for this card because getting to 8 lands is sort of plan A. 3/4 Vigilance for 3 is a really good rate. Blocks really well. Reasonable at attacking because it has Vigilance. Can rebuy an early cantrip or removal spell to help stabilize the board, counterspell, whatever you need. Can rebuy a tutor to enable you to fight through counterspells a bit better. Really versatile card in a deck that really likes playing these style of effects anyways, apart from the obvious of getting back Time Walk, which is the best possible target.
Erode is a 1 white instant that says destroy target creature or planeswalker. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. I know that we have historically a Path to Exile hater that is part of this channel, but I think this card is actually pretty good. Destroy is a lot worse than Exile. Like, don't get that twisted. Exile is a lot better than Destroy, but I think there is like a little bit of added bonus by being able to destroy planeswalkers. I think that's actually pretty interesting. Quite commonly, a lot of specifically like control decks will have a hard time dealing with planeswalkers, but even right now in the format, we used to be playing things like Hero's Downfall, Murderous Rider, etc., Vraska's Contempt to be able to kill both creatures and planeswalkers, but we've had to shy away from that as creatures have gotten more efficient and as planeswalkers have become less and less relevant. But that means that the planeswalkers that are still really good can sometimes be really hard to deal with. So I actually really like the secondary like kill option on Erode. I think it'll end up being a lot more relevant than you think it is. I mean, I can already see circumstances where you're playing, Jeskai or Boros or what have you, and you need to kill a critical, say, Comet, for example, or a Teferi on your turn that upticked. Yeah, giving them a basic land is obviously not that good, but honestly, giving people basic lands in this format right now is a lot better than it used to be. It used to be that when you gave people mana ramp, they would be ramping into like their 4 and 5 mana spells. Now it lets them double spell a little bit earlier, but it's like you're still getting like pretty decent tempo back with the 1 mana removal spell, most likely removing a 2 or 3 mana creature. So it still has all the problems that Path to Exile has, and it definitely won't fit in every archetype, but I think you should definitely consider playing this. And I would probably consider it. Well, I'm definitely going to be playing it in Jeskai. I think Jeskai is one of the best Path to Exile decks, so I think you basically have to play this. I think it's going to be really good, like a really good pickup for Jeskai. Beyond that, I would definitely try this in White Weenie, Boros, basically most white decks. I also think this is going to be good in combo decks as well that are looking to remove creatures for less amounts of mana, things like Flash Hulk, etc. So, yeah, I would definitely give Erode a try. I think this card is pretty reasonable.
I'm just realizing now as I get to the end of recording my section that I somehow ended up with all of the all of, like the blue red tempo and mono red cards. But that's okay. I mean, there are a bunch of them in this set, so someone had to talk about them, and it's gonna be me. So my next card is Colorstorm Stallion. This is a 1 blue red 3/3. It has Ward, Ward 1 and Haste, and then it has Opus, which is a new keyword as well in Secrets of Strixhaven, which is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And then this is the Opus part. If 5 or more mana were spent to cast that spell, create a token that's a copy of this creature, which is quite powerful. Now, in the Canadian Highlander context, we do not spend 5 mana on instants and sorceries very often. And this effect has very clearly been templated in a way to avoid some of the pitfalls of fake converted mana costs that have come up before. So you don't get to get around this with Delve. You don't get to get around this with pitch cast spells. You have to have, honest to goodness, spent 5 mana, which is not going to happen super often. But just as a baseline rate, 3/3 Ward 1 Haste with functionally prowess is already a card that these kinds of like blue-red prowess decks are going to be interested in. And if you ever do find a situation where you're hard casting a Force of Will, you're gonna obviously feel very good about it. You're not like building your deck around triggering the second part of the Opus on this card, but the rate on it is just reasonable enough that I think that you're gonna find that there are enough spots for this card that it's gonna feel, I think, quite reasonable.
Up next, a card I'm really excited about, and many others are too, Flashback. Aptly named. 1 red instant. Target instant or sorcery in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So it's kind of like a Snapcaster Mage, except you're trading a 1 mana discount for the Ambush Viper body. I think this card will see a lot of applications in both fair and combo decks. I think the fact that it's cheaper makes it much more playable in combo decks. And I think the fact that it's cheaper means fair decks will often opt for this as well. Pretty easy include if you're playing red and either Time Walk or Ancestor Recall. And also just pretty reasonable if you're a pretty spell heavy deck and don't even have those cards, like having the versatility to rebuy hand attack, removal, cantrip, so on and so forth. Really nice. Really, really good option. Efficient, cheap, versatile.
Zarek. I don't know the rest of the card name, and I don't have it in front of me, so I'm sure it'll be on the screen here, or wherever Liam puts it when he's in the edit. So it's a 3 mana planeswalker. It's 1 black, and it has 4 loyalty abilities. The first ability is Surveil 2, and it gives it +1 loyalty. Zarek starts at 3, and then the next ability is -1. Any number of players discard a card, and then the third ability is -2, and it's Unearth. So you return a creature card with CMC 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then the -7, I believe. Yeah, -7 is you flip 5 coins, and for every flip that you win, your opponent loses their subsequent next turn. So essentially, you're getting time walks. To start from the beginning with this card, One black is a really tough casting cost, I think. It's not the toughest, but I don't really love it. I find one black is like more challenging, or just black mana costs in general are a little more challenging than things like white. I don't know why. That's just how I feel in the format. It comes in with a really low loyalty. Like 3 is 3, and then going up to 4, say potentially, is like pretty low. I mean, it is a 3 mana planeswalker, so it comes down pretty early. But I mean, you're not always going to have it on 3 mana, and like the low loyalty definitely it matters. It's a consideration. I think this card's going to be really good against control decks specifically. All the modes are relevant. Like when you're against control, upticking to stop them from being able to lightning bolt your guy, or chip away at it with like their brazen borrower or whatever, is really good. Minusing to make them discard cards is just super relevant. I mean, we've seen that with planeswalkers that are kind of in the same ilk, like Liliana of the Veil be really good against control. And then also the -2 to get cards with 3 CMC back. I mean, any deck that's happy to play Unearth would probably be happy to leverage that mode of Ral Zarek. I don't think the ultimate is going to be particularly relevant. I don't really think -7 is like where you want to be. I mean, you play Ral on turn 3, and then by turn 8 you're able to ultimate it if they've done nothing to stop you. I mean, that's just not going to happen that often, so I wouldn't worry about evaluating this card based on its ultimate. But its 3 modes are like pretty reasonable overall, but I'm just a little suspicious. Like, it doesn't impact the board unless you already have something in your graveyard. Impacting their hand is good, but it's a little less good than it used to be in Canadian Highlander. Like, I just don't really think like, sometimes you ask your opponent to discard a card and you're pretty underwhelmed, or maybe they're playing Reanimator or something akin to that. So yeah, I think this card will be really good specifically in decks like Aristocrats, for example, like decks that really want to get their creatures back from the graveyard. But I could also see this being really good in Unearthed decks. There's a player locally who's been playing like a blue-black sort of like mid-range Reanimator deck, and I think that deck is definitely a place where you might try Ral just to see if it's good. Also, side note, you can target yourself with the -1, so if you're like playing a Reanimator deck or something akin to that, this might be worth considering, because you still get the bailout of being able to like target yourself and them with the discard ability. That's something that Liliana of the Veil was really good at previously, although we've seen that Liliana has actually been sort of phased out of the format. Like, you just don't see it that often anymore because it's not powerful enough. So I'm curious to see if Ral Zarek will make it. I'm a little unsure at this stage, but it's definitely worth considering giving it a shot.
In keeping with the theme of of the mono red / blue red tempo cards that I seem to be getting, Molten-core Maestro is a 1 and a red goblin bard with menace. It's a 2/2. It also has opus, so the opus here is you put a 1/1 counter on this creature if it's just a regular instant or sorcery, and then if you spend 5 or more mana on it, you get to add an amount of red mana equal to this creature's power. Again, you're not playing this for the opus effect. Like, that's maybe going to come up 1 in 10 games. But the reality of this card is that I think it is powerful enough that even if you don't get the opus effect to trigger ever, you're just still reasonably happy with a Sprite Dragon-esque effect that just is going to grow while you're cantripping through your deck, or maybe playing removal spells to clear the way. And then it also importantly has menace. So like these kind of pseudo evasion keywords are really powerful on these growers as well, especially in a deck like blue red. I think that you really get to put your opponent to the test by attacking with this thing, because double blocking is super unattractive against like the prospective burn spells and bounce spells that might be coming out of these kinds of shells. I don't know how much else you'll see this scene play in. Like, the growers have really kind of phased out of playability in the format by and large. 2 mana is where you really need them to be without having a bunch of other really meaningful keywords. I do think that menace qualifies as one of those meaningful keywords, but yeah, certainly this card could definitely only see play in, say, like blue red tempo and mono red and nowhere else. That wouldn't surprise me, but I do think in those shells it seems quite good to me. It's worth noting too that, like, if you do find yourself in a spot where you're hard casting a 5 mana spell, with this card at least, you're getting back a bunch of that mana, so it can be potentially more attractive to be tapping out in that way.
Up next, a card that cannot be described as any of cheap, efficient, well, maybe a little versatile. Splatter Technique. 1 blue, blue, red, red. Sorcery. Choose 1. Draw 4 cards. The other mode. Deal 4 damage to each creature and planeswalker. So I'm looking at this for mostly one deck, which is Blue Moon. This is a deck that traditionally struggles with wide boards, clearing them, and it's tough to commit to playing sweepers. Like, I've tried Ill-Timed Explosion. Brotherhood's End is a good include, but you sort of are reaching beyond then. I think this is maybe a pretty reasonable card, just because it's a sweeper that has a really big upside in other matchups. It is clunky, and I could see it not being good enough, but I think there's a chance. Drawing 4 cards is really good. Tidings knew what it was talking about.
Professor Dellian fell. Okay, let's start from the beginning. I mean, 2 green black. It has 4 loyalty abilities. The +2, you gain 3 life. The 0 is a draw 1 and lose 1 life. The -3 is just a destroy target creature, and then the ultimate, which is a -6, gives you an emblem that whenever you gain life, your opponent loses that much life. So starting right from the beginning, I mean, 5 loyalty on this planeswalker to start, and you uptick and it goes straight to 7. I mean, 7 is a lot of loyalty. Like, that is a very significant amount of loyalty. Also, I mean, 4 mana gets you 7 loyalty, but also you gain 3 life. So it's pretty unlikely that if you're under any particular type of aggression, that they'll be able to win the game the next turn, either by attacking you or attacking Dellian Fell. Like, I mean, I don't really know if they're going to be able to get rid of it a lot of the time. And the 0 is pretty solid as well. Drawing 1 and losing 1, especially when you have the option to +1 to gain 3 life, is to offset 3 of those potential draws, is pretty good. -3 is okay. I mean, destroying a target creature at sorcery speed isn't necessarily ideal. Going to 2 loyalty also isn't super great. I mean, you could see many games of this card where you play it down ticket, and then they play a broadside bombardiers and just kill your planeswalker for free. I mean, that's not necessarily a great trade for you, but it's not the worst. Like, and I don't know if the ultimate is really going to be that relevant for this card. I mean, it might be relevant sometimes in, say, like some decks that are focusing on specifically life gain, but I don't really know if it's even against control, for example. I don't know if you'd want to like play this card, uptick, then ultimate, then like try to win the game through upticking. Like, by that point, you might as well have just been paying 0 to draw a card and lose a life. So I think Dellian Fell has a lot going for it. It has a really high loyalty count. It's in like the ramp colors, which is pretty good too. Like, being able to play an elf on turn 1 and then play relevant 3-drop on turn 2 and then Dellian Fell on turn 3 feels pretty significant. I just don't know if this planeswalker is really like that much better than other 4 mana options that a lot of these decks have. And I mean, if we compare it to, say, something like Jace the Mind Sculptor, I mean, Jace doesn't see a lot of play right now, and that might be because of, like, it being in blue, etc. It's very different looking at a 4 mana planeswalker and these like colors that are this different. But I mean, like, Jace is so powerful, and we just aren't seeing it as much anymore. I mean, like, I don't know if Dellian Fell is gonna break that mold anytime soon. Like, I mean, 4 mana is just a lot. I think I might try this in Jund. You can definitely see situations where, like, having another 4-drop planeswalker could be good. And I mean, previously, when I was talking about erode, I was saying that planeswalkers are harder to remove than they used to be. And so I think there is some consideration to playing this. I mean, it's just kind of like okay at everything. It's not particularly amazing at anything, but I will say, starting at 5 loyalty and going up to 7, if you really want to do that, is like, that's a lot of loyalty. 7 is like really, really hard for people to get through, like, from one turn. So if you do think this card is going to be good in your archetype, I definitely recommend trying. I don't think it's like super weak at all, but I don't know if it's really that good at anything it does in particular. I think I'd probably definitely play this in like black green mid range. Like the Rock, for example. This does seem just like a rock card. So yeah, that's Dellian Fell.
Okay, next we have one of the gassiest cards I've seen in a while. Stock Up was a card that we rated pretty highly out of Aether Drift and even overperformed, I think, our evaluations of that card. Just the 2-for-1 with selection felt so powerful in the format, and it is a card that has very much so slid into being a format staple. CE's play in basically every blue deck. Flow State is, I think, maybe better than that card, likely to supplant Stock Up in a lot of scenarios. So Flow State is 1 in a blue for a sorcery. It's look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom in any order. And then, if there's an instant or sorcery in your graveyard, instead put 2 of them into your hand and the other one on the bottom of your library. This is crazy. This card in most decks is just a 2-mana, draw 2 of your top 3 most of the time. Obviously, there are going to be like fringe cases where this card only draws 1 card from your top 3, which for 2 mana, like obviously, you know, like Telling Time or Strategic Planning puts them in the graveyard. There's another one that I'm forgetting too, but like these kinds of like slightly worse than impulse effects have been not really playable in a really long time, but like they're not completely embarrassing. Like if you put one in your deck, you're not going to feel like an idiot. And this card is the most juiced version of this effect that we have ever seen by far. So a couple of things that stand out for me. One, the fact that it is only a single instant or sorcery required to kind of quote unquote unlock the more powerful version of this effect is very powerful. Obviously, that means that it's going to come up much more often. Many decks are going to lead on like cantrip or interactive spell on turn 1 and be able to use this for as a 2-for-1 as early as turn 2, which is obviously very powerful. It's a blue card. You can find it with Spellseeker, so it's like a potent card advantage engine that is seekerable, which is obviously like kind of ridiculous. It is also discountable. This card has generic mana in the cost, which I think is like kind of crazy. There's not a ton of mana discounters that see a lot of play in Canadian Highlander. Like we're not registering Baral in our blue decks anymore, but like that can still come up. That's not nothing. You could potentially see scenarios where this does get discounted in some kind of context. This will come up more in the second video with the kind of fringe cards, but I do think quietly this set is maybe like the best set for High Tide in like 10 years, maybe longer. I'm trying to think of the last really good High Tide set, and it might be like Cons of Tarkir when the Delve spells got printed. Like it's that good. There's so many good High Tide cards in this set, and this one is great in High Tide because High Tide is one of those decks that's actually trying to play discounters for spells, and so turning this into like a 1-mana draw 2 out of the top 3 is just so powerful. I have to imagine that this card is like S tier, immediately goes into almost all blue decks. It's just so on brand for what those decks want to be doing. And the one friction you would sometimes feel with Stock Up is that being on 3 mana often competed with your threats that you wanted to be deploying, or it would be challenging to tap out for Stock Up in a way that didn't feel like it left you really exposed to what your opponent might be doing. And the fact that this card only costs 2 mana means that like, okay, maybe you don't play it on turn 2, but you get to play it on turn 3 with some kind of interaction held up, or you get to play it on turn 4 and have another 2 mana available for a counterspell, or to play a threat alongside of it. The card is just so powerful. The floor is like a little low. Like I said, like these kinds of like impulse minus effects are not incredible, but they're not embarrassing. And the ceiling, getting the extra card out of this card is really like cranking the ceiling to the moon on this card. So I think that like this is an early contender for best Canadian Highlander card of the year. Frankly, just another crazy powerful blue card. I look forward to casting this one. I don't really look forward to having my opponents cast this one against me, but those are the breaks. It's going to happen. So yeah, that's Flow State.
Up next, the Very Hungry Archaic. So it's one of the archaics. So it's 2 green, like 2 colorless / green hybrid, 2 colorless / green hybrid for an avatar 0/0. It has trample and reach. and it has converge. So it enters with a +1/+1 counter for each color of mana spent to cast it. So the idea is you spend green and 2 other colors, and it's a 3 mana 3/3. Excuse me. And then it has, whenever you cast a creature spell, that creature enters with an additional +1/+1 counter for each color of mana spent to cast it. So it gives converge to all other creatures as well, which is kind of crazy. If you can curve like Dork into this and it survives, I can't foresee a world where you lose a fair game. Like, your creatures are going to be so ridiculously huge that it just becomes like incredibly difficult to lose, I think. Yeah, excited to try this one out. I've been having a 5-color zoo deck sitting on like simmer for the better part of 2 years now. It's always been one deck that I've sort of like worked on but never really found a build I was happy with. And I think this card, along with some of the other archaics, might finally kick it into gear. So we'll give it a whirl soon. Yeah, those were the cards I was the most excited about, and we'll see what the other guys are talking about, and definitely let us know in the comments what you're excited about.
And Prismari Charm. I mean, I'm gonna read it out, but this card's really solid. It's blue-red, so it's 2 mana, and it has 3 modes on it. So the first mode is scry 2, draw a card. It's an instant. The second mode is you can deal 1 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures, or targets. Might be targets. I don't know. Not really that relevant for the card. It's the least relevant mode for sure. The third mode is returning target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So the thing about this card is that it's just really solid at everything that it does. I would say that the third mode, returning a non-land permanent to its hand, is actually a really big deal. Being able to return, say, like, their Citadel after they've tinkered it out, or a problematic enchantment that you can't really deal with, maybe an artifact. You aren't packing as much artifact hate as you used to in the old days. Like, I really like modes like this on cards that also have good buyouts, like Preordain at instant speed. I really think like being able to do that is solid. Like, let's say, for example, you're playing against Citadel and they cast Tinker and you have this in hand. Like, you can actually let them resolve the Citadel potentially, depending on the context of your hand, the shape of the game, and just like bounce it, right? And, you know, try to fight it when it's coming down later. Versus just like if it said creature, you just have to snap off the Preordain and hope you hit something like a Force of Will or a free counterspell, etc. So yeah, I think the Preordain buyout is specifically really, really good. 1 damage is also like, it's pretty reasonable. It's not as good as it used to be, but like we've seen, you know, people are cutting Fire and Ice left and right. Pyrokinesis isn't even making it into decks these days. You know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So, you know, dealing damage to X1s isn't as like fruitful as it used to be, but I think it's still pretty relevant. I mean, it does kill like the full Bowmasters after they play it. You know, it kills a couple of other like creatures. You know, Ragavan if you're on the play and they're on the draw. Like, it just having the buyout of being able to like hit something for 1 is really, really nice too. I mean, quite often my guess is that you're mostly going to be casting this card as a Preordain. But I would say that generally speaking, I think it's pretty flexible, and the flexibility of this card makes me want to really give it a chance. One thing I would say when you're evaluating cards that are this flexible or offer like a level of flexibility is like, are the modes, like the modes are never something that you would pay full price for, but are the modes in their like totality, like the options to have them worth it, and how many of other effects of this am I playing? Like, for example, if I was playing Prismari Charm and Izzet Charm and a bunch of MDFCs, like, you start to dilute your deck to the point where your deck just becomes a lot of cards that are actually kind of underrate. like Prismari Charm for any of its modes is underrated. So like you wouldn't play it for any single one of these modes. You're just playing it for flexibility. So I would be cautious about including this in decks where you're already playing a lot of those types of cards. But I would definitely try this in a lot of places. And I mean, it might be a lot better than I'm expecting. I mean, the idea that you can hold up a counterspell but then cast a preordain. Or you can like kill their X1 if they, say again like dash in a Ragavan or play a Bowmasters or whatever is like super interesting to me. So I'm really excited to try Prismari's Charm specifically. You're gonna see this in Jeskai for sure, and you'll definitely see it in blue-red decks. I mean, for blue-red decks, this is definitely a great pickup, where the non-land bounce is like a lot more relevant because they don't have the same tools that like other colors have to be able to deal with enchantments, etc. So yeah, you'll see this in like Blue Moon, Tempo, and I'll definitely be playing it in Jeskai, don't you worry. So you might see it soon on the archive. I'm really excited for Secrets of Strixhaven, and I know we're going to be reviewing more cards that come out from the set, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, I'll see you all next time. Peace.